My name is Maeve, and I am 32 years old. My family has always called me the peacekeeper, the responsible one, the bigger person. For years, I have swallowed my pride and given in to my younger sister Jenna's demands, tantrums, and selfishness. With my grandmother's 80th birthday celebration approaching, everyone expects me to follow the same old script. But this time, something inside me has snapped. I have finally reached my breaking point. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button, because you will want to see how I finally stood up for myself. I grew up in a middle-class American family in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio. Our house was nothing fancy, a two-story colonial with a big backyard where we spent our summers playing and arguing in equal measure. I am the eldest of 3 children, 7 years into my parents' marriage, and according to them, the perfect first child. Responsible, obedient, and caring. I was the one who helped set the table for dinner, finished my homework without being asked, and rarely caused any trouble. My sister Jenna arrived 4 years after me, and from the beginning, she was my opposite in every way. Loud where I was quiet, demanding where I was accommodating, and somehow, despite her constant tantrums and manipulations, she became the undeniable favorite. My brother Ethan, the baby of the family, came 4 years after Jenna. He was easygoing and quiet, preferring to stay out of the spotlight and definitely out of any conflicts. The pattern started early. When I was 8 and Jenna was 4, my grandparents gave me a beautiful porcelain doll for my birthday. It had auburn hair like mine and came with a tiny trunk filled with handmade outfits. I treasured it, keeping it displayed on my bookshelf rather than playing with it. 3 days after my birthday, I came home from school to find Jenna in my room, the doll in her hands, several of the tiny outfits torn. When I cried to my mother, her response set the tone for the next 2 decades of my life. She put her arm around my shoulders and said, "Sweetie, she is just a little girl. She does not understand how special the doll is. You are older and smarter. You need to be the bigger person." Being the bigger person became my unwanted superpower. When Jenna wore my favorite sweater without asking and stretched it out, I was told to be the bigger person. When she borrowed my science project notes the night before it was due, leaving me to recreate everything from memory, I was told to be the bigger person. When she invited her friends to my 16th birthday dinner without asking, turning my quiet celebration into her social hour, I was told to be the bigger person. By the time we were teenagers, the stakes got higher. During my junior year of high school, I saved for 6 months to buy a used car, a faded blue Honda Civic that gave me my first taste of independence. 3 weeks after I got it, Jenna, who only had her learner's permit, took my keys without asking and backed my car into a light pole in the mall parking lot. The damage cost nearly $800, all of my remaining savings. My parents' response: "Insurance would go up if we report it, and Jenna feels terrible. She will pay you back eventually. You need to be the bigger person, Maeve." She never paid me back, not $1. When I got accepted to my dream college with a partial scholarship, my parents could only afford to help one of us with tuition. Guess who got the college fund? Jenna, because she did not qualify for any scholarships and needed the help more than I did. Meanwhile, I worked 30 hours a week at a coffee shop while maintaining my grades and graduated with student loans that I will be paying off for another decade. Through all of this, I maintained the peace. I smiled at family gatherings. I sent birthday gifts. I called home weekly. I swallowed my resentment because that is what good daughters do, what good sisters do. But with every incident, every unfair situation, every time I was expected to understand and forgive, while Jenna faced no consequences, something inside me hardened. As my grandmother's 80th birthday approached, I could feel the familiar anxiety building. Family gatherings always meant walking on eggshells around Jenna, carefully managing my words and actions to avoid conflict, and inevitably giving in to whatever drama she created. But this time, something felt different. There was a heaviness in my chest, a voice in the back of my mind whispering that maybe, just maybe, I did not have to be the bigger person anymore. By 25, I had established myself in my first professional job after college. I was working as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized company in Columbus, living in a tiny apartment with a roommate and slowly building my career. After 3 years of hard work and late nights, an opportunity for promotion opened up. The position was junior marketing manager, which meant a significant pay raise, more creative input, and a stepping stone to bigger opportunities. I spent weeks preparing for the interview. I researched the company's latest campaigns, created a portfolio of my work, and even prepared a presentation with ideas for their upcoming product launch. The night before the interview, I laid out my best suit, polished my shoes, and went to bed early, setting 2 alarms to ensure I would not oversleep. The morning of the interview, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Jenna, her voice frantic. "Maeve, I need your help. My car broke down on the highway and I'm going to be late for my final exam. Can you come get me? Please, it is an emergency." I looked at the clock. If I left immediately to pick her up, I would be cutting it extremely close for my own interview. "Jenna, I have a really important interview today. Can you call a tow truck or an Uber?" "I do not have money for an Uber," she wailed. "And a tow truck will take forever. Please, Maeve. I will fail this class if I miss the final. You know how strict Professor Jenkins is." The familiar pressure built in my chest. "Family comes first," I could hear my mother saying. "Just be the bigger person." I called my potential employer, made up an excuse about a family emergency, and asked to reschedule. The receptionist's voice cooled noticeably as she told me they had a tight interview schedule and would see what they could do. I knew what that meant. I drove 45 minutes to where Jenna was stranded, finding her sitting on the guardrail, scrolling through her phone. Her emergency turned out to be that her car had run out of gas. Not broken down, not damaged, just empty because she had ignored the warning light, thinking she could make it to cheaper gas closer to campus. After filling her tank from a gas can I kept in my trunk for actual emergencies, I confronted her. "Jenna, you cost me my interview. You could have called anyone for this. Dad, your roommate, any of your friends." She shrugged, barely looking up from her phone. "Everyone else was busy, and I knew you would come through. You always do." She said it so casually, as if my sacrifice was her birthright. When I got home, there was a voicemail from the company. They had decided to move forward with other candidates who demonstrated more commitment to the position. My chance was gone. That night, I called my parents', voice shaking with anger and disappointment as I explained what happened. Instead of the sympathy I desperately needed, my mother sighed and said, "I am sure it is frustrating, honey, but Jenna would have failed her class. You will get other interviews. Family has to come first." My father added, "Jenna is still figuring things out. She needs more support right now. You have always been so independent and capable." Something in me snapped. "And that is why I get punished, because I am responsible, because I do not create crises. That is not fair, and you know it." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice tight. "I think you are being very unfair. We have always treated you girls equally. Jenna just needs more guidance." Equally. When have you ever made Jenna apologize to me? When has she ever faced consequences for the things she does that hurt me? My voice was rising, years of suppressed frustration bubbling to the surface. For the next month, I distanced myself from my family. I did not call. I did not visit. I ignored texts from my mother asking what was wrong and why I was being difficult. It was the longest I had ever gone without speaking to them, and while there was guilt, there was also a strange sense of peace. Eventually, my mother showed up at my apartment with my favorite cookies and tears in her eyes. "We miss you," she said simply. "The family is not the same without you." And just like that, I caved. I apologized for overreacting. I said I understood that Jenna needed more support. I slipped back into my role as the understanding, forgiving daughter, the bigger person. But something had changed inside me. A seed of resentment had taken root, and this time, I could not quite dig it out. After the interview incident, I realized I needed space from my family's dynamics to grow and heal. When a job opportunity came up in Chicago, 300 miles from Columbus, I took it without hesitation. The distance was both physical and emotional, a buffer between me and the patterns that had defined me for so long. Chicago embraced me with its energy and anonymity. I rented a small studio apartment in Lakeview, decorated it exactly as I wanted, and began building a life that was entirely mine. No compromises, no adjustments to accommodate someone else's chaos. 6 months after my move, I met Adam at a photography exhibit. He was tall with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that drew me in immediately. Our first date lasted 5 hours conversation flowing effortlessly from childhood stories to career aspirations to our shared love of obscure documentaries. As our relationship deepened, I was introduced to Adam's family, and the contrast to my own was startling. His parents listened when he spoke, disagreed without dismissing his feelings, and treated his younger sister with the same respect they showed him. There were no favorites, no unspoken expectations that one sibling should sacrifice for the other. "Is this real?" I asked him one night after a Sunday dinner at his parents' home. "Do all families work like this?" Adam laughed, then grew serious when he saw my expression. "Not all families know, but healthy ones try to. Why? What is your family like?" That question opened a floodgate. For the first time, I told someone the full truth about my family dynamics, about always being expected to give in, to understand, to forgive, about Jenna's behavior and my parents' enabling, about the resentment that had been building for years. "That does not sound fair to you at all," Adam said simply. Those 7 words validated what I had felt, but never fully acknowledged. It was not fair. And maybe it was not normal either. With Adam's encouragement, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Marshall, who specialized in family dynamics. In those weekly sessions, I began to understand that what I had experienced was a common pattern in families, one child becoming the responsible caretaker, while another was allowed to avoid consequences. "You were parentified," Dr. Marshall explained, "made to feel responsible for your sister's emotions and outcomes. That is a heavy burden for any child to carry, and it is understandable that you are feeling its weight now." Over the next year, with therapy and distance, I began setting boundaries in all areas of my life. I stopped taking on extra projects at work just because I was so good at handling things. I expressed my needs more clearly to Adam instead of assuming I should adapt to his preferences. And with my family, I limited phone calls to once a week and visits to major holidays. When Jenna called with emergencies, I listened sympathetically, but did not offer solutions or assistance. "That sounds really challenging," I would say. "What do you think you are going to do about it?" My parents noticed the change. "You seem different," my mother commented during one of our calls. "More distant." "I am just focusing on my life here," I replied, not ready to explain the transformation I was undergoing. How could I tell her that I was learning that love should not require constant sacrifice, that healthy relationships had balance? For 2 years, this new dynamic worked. I built a fulfilling career in marketing, my relationship with Adam grew stronger, and the distance from my family allowed old wounds to begin healing. I was not angry anymore, just resolved to protect the peace I had found. Then came the call about my grandmother's 80th birthday celebration. A weekend back home with the whole extended family present. My grandmother, my father's mother, had always been a bright spot in family gatherings. She was wise, funny, and seemed to see me more clearly than my parents ever had, slipping me encouraging notes or meaningful glances when family tensions rose. "You will be there, right?" my mother asked, a hint of her old expectation in her voice. "Grandma Rose specifically asked for you." For my grandmother, I would go. But as I hung up the phone, anxiety knotted in my stomach. Would I slide back into old patterns? Would Jenna still know exactly which buttons to push? Would my parents still expect me to keep the peace at any cost? That night, I discussed the upcoming visit with both Adam and Dr. Marshall. "You are not the same person who left Columbus," Adam reminded me, squeezing my hand. "You are stronger now. You know your boundaries." Dr. Marshall was more specific in her guidance. "Think about what you need to feel safe and respected during this visit. A hotel room instead of staying at your parents' house. Limited time with your sister. Whatever those boundaries are, communicate them clearly beforehand." I made my plans carefully. I booked a hotel room close to my parents' house, ensuring I would have a retreat if things became overwhelming. I told my family I would arrive Friday afternoon and leave Sunday after lunch, a clear, limited time frame. I practiced responses to potential provocations from Jenna. I felt prepared, confident even, but as I packed my bag the night before my flight, a whisper of doubt crept in. 2 years of growth and boundaries were about to face their greatest test. Would I stand firm, or would the gravitational pull of family patterns drag me back into orbit around Jenna's son? The familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood seemed both unchanged and strangely smaller as I drove my rental car from the airport to my parents' house. The oak trees my father had planted when we first moved in now towered over the sidewalk. Mrs. Abernathy's obsessively maintained flower beds still burst with color. The basketball hoop where neighborhood kids gathered still hung on the Johnsons' garage. I parked in the driveway, taking a moment to steady my breathing before grabbing my purse. Just a weekend, I reminded myself. You have a hotel room. You have boundaries. You are not 25 anymore. My mother opened the door before I could knock, enveloping me in a hug that smelled of her signature perfume and the cinnamon rolls she always made for special occasions. "You look wonderful," she said, holding me at arm's length. "Chicago agrees with you." My father appeared behind her, more gray at his temples than I remembered, and hugged me with the same gentle awkwardness he had always shown. "Good to have you home, kiddo." Ethan was next, surprising me with how much he had matured since I had seen him last Christmas. At 24, he had grown into his lanky frame, his perpetual bedhead now a stylish cut. "The prodigal sister returns," he teased, pulling me into a quick hug. For a moment, the warmth of being home, of being with the people who had known me my entire life, pushed my anxiety aside. Then I heard her voice from the living room. "Is that Maeve finally gracing us with her presence?" Jenna appeared in the hallway, as perfectly put together as always. Her blonde hair was cut in a fashionable bob, her makeup flawless, her outfit clearly expensive. She had always known how to make an entrance. She air-kissed my cheek, a gesture that felt performative rather than affectionate. "Look at you all big city now," she said, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "That is an interesting choice of outfit for travel." And there it was, 30 seconds in the first little dig. I had worn comfortable black pants and a soft blue sweater for the flight, practical and polished, but not trying to impress anyone. Clearly, in Jenna's eyes, I had failed some unspoken test. I smiled tightly. "Good to see you too, Jenna." My mother quickly intervened, ushering us toward the dining room. "I made all your favorites for dinner. Come sit down before everything gets cold." Dinner was a minefield of subtle tensions. My mother peppered me with questions about my job, but each time I began to answer, Jenna would interrupt with stories of her own work as an event planner, each tale featuring some celebrity client or exclusive venue. "So, anyway," I tried again, "we just landed the Northbrook account, which is huge for our agency." "That reminds me," Jenna cut in. "I am planning a charity gala next month for the Hansons. You know, the family that owns half of downtown. Their daughter is marrying a Kennedy cousin next year, and I will probably be doing the wedding too." My father and mother oohed and awed appropriately. Ethan caught my eye across the table and gave a slight eye roll. At least someone noticed the pattern. After dinner, as I was helping clear the table, my mother brought up the sleeping arrangements. "We thought you and Jenna could share her room like old times. We are putting your Aunt Susan and Uncle Rick in the guest room since they are staying the whole week. I set down the plates I was carrying. Actually, I have booked a hotel room. The reservation is already paid for. My mother's face fell. A hotel. But this is a family gathering, and it is so expensive to stay in a hotel when you have a perfectly good home to stay in. I thought it would be more comfortable for everyone, I explained. I tend to work early, and I would not want to disturb anyone. My father joined the conversation, his voice carrying that familiar note of disappointment. Your mother and I were hoping to have all our children under one roof again. And with the cost of the gift we all went in on for Grandma Rose, it seems wasteful to spend money on a hotel. The guilt trip was so predictable I almost laughed. Instead, I took a deep breath. I understand, but I have already made the reservation. Jenna appeared in the doorway. Oh, is Maeve too good for us now? Needs her fancy hotel when the rest of us are cramming in together? Before I could respond, my mother said, Maybe you could cancel it, just for this weekend. It would mean a lot to have everyone here. I felt my resolve weakening under the weight of their combined expectations. The voice of the old Maeve whispered that it was just 2 nights that making them happy was easier than standing my ground. I thought of what Dr. Marshall would say, what Adam had reminded me before I left Chicago. But in the end, family patterns run deep. I will see if I can cancel without a penalty. I said the words tasting like defeat. My mother beamed. Wonderful. I will get fresh sheets for Jenna's bed. Later that night, after an uncomfortable phone call canceling my hotel reservation, and yes, there was a penalty, I found myself in Jenna's room, relegated to the air mattress on the floor, while she took the queen bed. Just like old times, she said cheerfully, scrolling through her phone as I tried to make the air mattress somewhat comfortable. Remember when we used to stay up all night talking? What I remembered was lying awake while Jenna talked mainly about herself, expecting me to listen and validate while rarely showing interest in my life. But I forced a smile. Sure. As I unpacked my small overnight bag, Jenna gasped. Is that the new Nordstrom dress, the Avery Chapman design? I had splurged on the dress for Grandma's party, a simple but elegant emerald green wrap dress that had cost more than I usually spent on clothes, but made me feel confident and beautiful. Yes, I got it for the party tomorrow. Jenna fingered the silky material. It is gorgeous. I bet it looks amazing on you. The compliment, so unexpected, caught me off guard. Thanks. I thought the color would be nice for a spring celebration. Later, as I lay on the uncomfortable air mattress, staring at the ceiling, with Jenna's soft snores filling the room, I called Adam. How is it going? He asked, his voice a comforting link to my real life. I already gave in on the hotel, I admitted. Not even 24 hours here, and I am already slipping back into being the accommodating daughter. That does not mean you have failed, he said gently. You are navigating complicated dynamics. Just remember your worth, okay? You deserve respect and consideration too. His words warmed me, but as I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was already losing ground. The resentment I thought I had worked through in therapy was resurfacing, bubbling up as I lay in the dark, a grown woman on an air mattress, because it was easier than standing firm. Sleep came fitfully, my dreams filled with childhood memories of giving in, of watching Jenna get her way again and again, while I smiled and pretended it did not hurt. I woke with a familiar knot of tension in my shoulders, a physical manifestation of the emotional weight I always carried around my family. And when I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was my emerald green dress missing from the closet where I had hung it, the hanger empty and accusing. The morning of my grandmother's birthday celebration dawned bright and clear, a perfect spring day. I woke early, the air mattress having done no favors for my back, and found the house quiet. A note on the kitchen counter informed me that my parents had gone to pick up the cake and last-minute decorations, and Ethan was helping set up at the community center where the party would be held. Of Jenna and my missing dress, there was no sign. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table trying to calm my growing irritation. The dress was just a thing, I told myself, not worth causing a scene on Grandma's special day. But it was more than just the dress, and I knew it. It was the pattern, the expectation that Jenna could take what she wanted without asking, and I would accept it with a smile. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my mother called. "Maeve, honey, can you check if I left the gift bag with the photo album on my dresser? I cannot find it in any of the bags we brought to the hall." "Sure," I said, heading upstairs to their bedroom. The gift bag was indeed on the dresser, a beautiful handcrafted album inside, containing family photos spanning 8 decades of my grandmother's life. I had contributed several recent photos of myself in Chicago, places I thought my grandmother would enjoy seeing. As I picked up the bag, I overheard voices from my parents' bathroom. The door was slightly ajar, and Jenna's voice drifted through clearly. "I know, Mom. I have got the speech all planned out. It is going to be perfect," my mother's voice replied from the speakerphone. "I am so glad you volunteered to do this. You have always had such a way with words." "Well, someone had to do it, and we both know Maeve is not great with public speaking. Remember her valedictorian speech so stiff?" My mother laughed. "She does get nervous. Better to have you handle it, especially for something this important. We cannot risk Maeve freezing up or making it all serious and boring." I stood frozen, the gift bag clutched in my hand. They had asked Jenna to give the main speech at Grandma's party. Not me, the granddaughter who called Grandma Rose weekly, who sent her handwritten letters, who had the same love of gardening and classic films. No, they had chosen Jenna, who visited when it was convenient and often forgot to even call on Grandma's actual birthday. And worse, they had never even mentioned it to me, never asked if I might want to say something. They had made the decision without me assuming I would be hurt, but would, as always, understand. Be the bigger person. I must have made a noise because the bathroom door swung open, revealing Jenna wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping wet. "Oh, Maeve, I did not hear you." Her eyes darted to the gift bag in my hands, then back to my face. "Were you eavesdropping?" "Mom asked me to get the photo album," I said stiffly. I did not realize I needed to announce myself in my parents' house. Jenna's expression shifted to one of practiced concern. "Are you upset about the speech? Mom thought it would be better if I did it. You know how you get with public speaking." The condescension in her tone made something snap inside me. "When did they ask you to do this?" "A month ago. It is not a big deal, Maeve. It is just a little speech." A month ago. They had planned this for a month and never mentioned it. "And my dress, is that not a big deal either?" Jenna at least had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I was going to ask, but you were asleep, and it looks so much better on me anyway. The color brings out my eyes. You need to give it back. Now." She rolled her eyes. "Do not be so dramatic. I will return it before we leave for the party. Besides, I did not bring anything else that's nice enough." Before I could respond, the front door opened and my parents' voices floated up the stairs. Jenna gave me a pointed look before closing the bathroom door, effectively ending the conversation. I delivered the gift bag to my mother without mentioning what I had overheard, the hurt too fresh to discuss without emotion. Instead, I retreated to Jenna's room to get ready, wearing the backup outfit I had brought, a black pants and a silk blouse that felt woefully underdressed compared to what I had planned. 2 hours later, we all gathered in the foyer, ready to head to the party. My parents were elegantly dressed, my father in a suit he usually reserved for weddings, my mother in a flattering blue dress. Ethan looked uncomfortable but handsome in dress pants and a button-down shirt. And Jenna, of course, was stunning in my emerald green dress, which fit her perfectly despite our different body types. "You look beautiful, Jenna," my mother gushed. "That color is magnificent on you." My father nodded in agreement. "Very elegant. You will do a great job with the speech. Neither of them commented on my appearance or seemed to notice that Jenna was wearing the dress I had unpacked the night before. Ethan caught my eye, his expression questioning, but I gave a small shake of my head. Not now. At the community center, the party was already in full swing. My grandmother had not arrived yet, a strategic plan to allow everyone to be present for her entrance. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and old family friends milled about, enjoying appetizers and drinks, catching up on family news. I made the rounds, smiling and chatting the good granddaughter, the responsible one. I had brought a separate gift just for me, a delicate silver bracelet with rose quartz beads that I knew my grandmother would love. I placed it on the gift table, taking extra care with the wrapping. Jenna flitted through the crowd, accepting compliments on her dress, my dress, and dropping hints about her upcoming speech. I watched her, that familiar mixture of resentment and resignation settling in my chest. When my grandmother finally arrived, the room erupted in cheers and applause. At 80, Rose Sullivan was still a striking woman. Her white hair elegantly styled her posture straight, her blue eyes sharp and missing nothing. She moved through the crowd, regally accepting hugs and well wishes with genuine warmth. When she reached me, her smile widened. "Maeve, my darling girl, the light of my heart." She hugged me tightly, smelling of the lavender perfume she had worn for as long as I could remember. "Let me look at you. Chicago has put roses in your cheeks." "Happy birthday, Grandma," I said, fighting unexpected tears. "I am so glad to be here for your special day." "Having you here is the best gift," she said, patting my cheek. "We must catch up properly. I want to hear everything about your life." Before we could continue our conversation, there was a commotion at the door. Jenna had arrived fashionably late as usual, making her entrance just as all eyes were on Grandma. She swept in my emerald dress, catching the light, and made a beeline for us. "Grandma!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around our grandmother. "You look absolutely amazing. 80 could never—" My grandmother returned the hug with a smile that seemed slightly less warm than the one she had given me. "Jenna, dear, thank you for coming." I planned half of this party. Wait until you hear my speech." She linked her arm through Grandma's. "But first, let me introduce you to some people who just arrived." And just like that, she whisked my grandmother away, leaving me standing alone, our moment of connection broken. I watched them go, Jenna commanding attention in my dress, my grandmother glancing back at me with an apologetic smile. The luncheon portion of the celebration began with family members seated at round tables adorned with spring flowers. I found myself at a table with cousins I rarely saw, while my grandmother sat at the head table with my parents, and of course Jenna. After the main course, my father clinked his glass and stood. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my mother's 80th birthday. She has been the heart of this family, the wisdom behind our decisions, and the love that binds us together. And now my youngest daughter, Jenna, would like to say a few words." Jenna rose gracefully, smoothing my dress over her hips, and took the microphone. She began with warm words about our grandmother, anecdotes that drew laughs from the crowd, and sentiments that seemed genuine enough. Then her tone shifted slightly. "Of course, growing up as Rose Sullivan's granddaughter came with high expectations. Just ask Maeve." She looked directly at me, a smile that did not reach her eyes on her face. "Remember when Maeve tried to make Grandma's famous apple pie for the 4th of July picnic? I have never seen so much smoke come out of an oven." Laughter rippled through the room. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "And then there was the time Maeve decided she could cut her own bangs before Grandma's 70th birthday party. She looked like she had been attacked by garden shears." More laughter, louder now. A few relatives glanced at me with amused expressions. Jenna continued each funny story at my expense, each one highlighting some failure or embarrassing moment. By the third anecdote, a humiliating tale about me throwing up on a boy I liked at Grandma's Christmas party when I was 13, I was no longer embarrassed. I was angry. This was not about Grandma at all. This was Jenna doing what she had always done, asserting her dominance, ensuring that even when I was respected or loved, she would find a way to diminish me. As the speech concluded and applause broke out, I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment alone to compose myself. I stood at the sink, breathing deeply, reminding myself that making a scene would only cast me as the villain on Grandma's special day. The door opened, and to my surprise, my grandmother entered. "I thought I might find you here," she said, her eyes knowing. "I am fine," I said automatically. "Just needed a moment." Jenna's speech was unkind, she said, directly surprising me with her frankness. "Those stories were inappropriate for today." I swallowed hard. "It is nothing new. She has always been like that." My grandmother's eyes softened. "And you have always been the one expected to rise above it, have not you?" The simple acknowledgement of the pattern brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "It is what I do," I whispered. "Be the bigger person." She took my hands in hers, her skin papery and soft against mine. "Do you know I was always the bigger person too? With my sister Marion, with my husband's family. Always understanding, always forgiving, always smoothing things over." I stared at her in surprise. "You were for decades. And do you know what I learned at 75? She squeezed my hands. "That being the bigger person should not mean making yourself smaller." She reached up and brushed a tear from my cheek. "You are so much like me, Maeve, but you do not have to wait until you are my age to learn that lesson." With those words, she left me standing in the restroom, her wisdom settling over me like a mantle. Being the bigger person should not mean making yourself smaller. The phrase echoed in my mind as I rejoined the party, seeing everything through new eyes. How had I never realized that in trying to be big enough to absorb everyone else's needs and feelings, I had been shrinking myself all along? The post-party gathering at my parents' house was smaller, but no less fraught with tension. Only immediate family remained, along with my grandmother, who would be staying in the guest room for the night before Aunt Susan and Uncle Rick arrived the next day. We sat in the living room, tired but still riding the emotional high of the celebration. My mother was going through the gifts, exclaiming over each one, while my father and Ethan discussed an upcoming baseball game. Jenna had disappeared upstairs to freshen up, still wearing my dress. When she returned, she flopped onto the couch beside me, the scent of her perfume mixing with the lingering smell of the community center's candles on my dress. "I am thinking of borrowing your car tomorrow," she announced casually. "I have a lunch date with Tyler, and his car is in the shop." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. "My rental car?" "Yeah, I will have it back by 4, promise." She said it with such easy confidence, such certainty, that of course I would agree. It was such a small thing. The kind of thing I would have said yes to 1,000 times before. The kind of minor inconvenience I would have accepted to keep the peace. But my grandmother's words still echoed in my mind. Being the bigger person should not mean making yourself smaller. "No," I said, the word falling from my lips like a stone into still water. The room went quiet. My mother looked up from the gifts my father's conversation with Ethan trailed off. Jenna stared at me in genuine surprise. "What do you mean, no? I mean, no, you cannot borrow my rental car. I am liable for it, and I am not comfortable lending it out." Jenna's expression shifted from surprise to indignation. "Seriously, it is just for a few hours. I'm not going to wreck it or anything." "Nevertheless, the answer is no." She turned to our parents, her go-to mediators, whenever she did not get her way. "Mom, Dad, can you believe this? It is just a car." My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Maeve, if Jenna needs the car, what is the harm? You were not planning to go anywhere tomorrow morning, were you?" And there it was, the familiar pressure, the expectation that I would give in. But something had shifted inside me. Actually, I might want to go somewhere. And even if I did not, it is my rental car, my responsibility, and my decision. My mother's brow furrowed in concern. "Honey, why are you being difficult about this? It is such a small thing." "Is it?" I asked, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "Because it does not feel small to me. It feels like one more time I am expected to give up something I need or want because Jenna wants it." Jenna rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, here we go. Poor Maeve, always the victim." "I am not a victim," I said evenly. "That is the point. I have spent my entire life being told to be the bigger person, to give in, to understand, to forgive. When has anyone ever asked you to do the same? Jenna, when have you ever been expected to consider my feelings or needs?" The room had gone completely still. Ethan was watching, wide-eyed. My father looked deeply uncomfortable, and my mother's face had gone pale. "Maeve," my mother began cautiously, "I think you are overreacting. This is about a car, not your whole relationship with your sister." "No, it is not just about the car. It is about my dress that Jenna took without asking. It is about the speech she gave today that humiliated me in front of our entire family. It is about the fact that she was chosen to give that speech without anyone even asking if I might want to say something to the grandmother I talk to every week, while Jenna barely remembers her birthday." I was standing now, years of suppressed feelings finding their voice. It is about the interview I missed because of her emergency that cost me a promotion. It is about the car she wrecked in high school that I paid for. It is about every single time I have been expected to understand and forgive while she faces absolutely no consequences for her actions. Jenna had also risen to her feet, her face flushed with anger. "That is so unfair. You have always been the perfect one, the responsible one. Everyone always compares me to you and finds me lacking. Poor Jenna, not as smart as Maeve, not as organized as Maeve, not as mature as Maeve. And yet somehow you always get what you want," I countered. "You got the college fund, you get the attention. You get to take my things without asking and give speeches that mock me, and no one says a word because heaven forbid we upset Jenna." My mother stepped between us, her voice strained. "Girls, please. This is getting out of hand." My father joined her, his expression stern. "Maeve, I think that is enough. Jenna is your sister and family supports each other. Sometimes that means making sacrifices." "Why is it always me making the sacrifices?" I demanded. "Why is it never Jenna who has to understand or compromise or be the bigger person? Because Jenna needs more support." My mother said the words clearly rehearsed from years of use. "She is more sensitive, more emotional. And I am what less deserving of consideration, less worthy of respect." "That is not what your mother meant," my father said. "But you have always been stronger, more independent. So I get punished for it. I get less support, less help, less consideration, because I do not create chaos when I do not get my way." "No one is punishing you," my mother insisted. "We love you both equally." I laughed a sound without humor. "You might love us equally, but you do not treat us equally. You never have." To my surprise, Ethan spoke up from his corner of the room. "She is right, you know." All heads turned toward him. In family conflicts, Ethan had always been the silent observer, the Switzerland in our emotional war zone. Maeve has always been expected to give in. He continued, his voice quiet but firm. I have watched it my whole life. When we were kids, when we were teenagers, and even now. It is not fair, and it is not right. My mother looked stricken. Ethan. It is true, Mom. You and Dad always make excuses for Jenna. You always expect Maeve to understand and forgive, but you never expect the same from Jenna. Jenna was staring at Ethan in disbelief. I cannot believe you are taking her side. It is not about sides, Ethan said. It is about the truth. The room fell into tense silence. I could feel tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. I had spent too many years crying in private over these exact dynamics. I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt, that I am going to go to a hotel for tonight after all. My mother's face crumpled. Maeve, please, let's talk about this. We can work it out. We have been having this same conversation my entire life. I said, the weariness in my voice surprising even me. Nothing ever changes. I am tired of being understanding. I am tired of forgiving without apology or acknowledgement. I am just tired. I turned and walked upstairs to Jenna's room, my heart pounding as I quickly packed my overnight bag. I could hear raised voices downstairs, my parents and Jenna arguing Ethan's occasional input. None of it mattered anymore. Something had broken inside me, but not in the way things usually broke in my family. This break felt like freedom. As I zipped my bag, there was a soft knock at the door. I expected my mother ready with tears and guilt. Instead, my grandmother stood there, her expression a mixture of concern and pride. You are leaving? I nodded. I cannot stay here tonight, not after that. She came into the room, closing the door behind her. I want you to know that I heard everything, and I am proud of you. The simple statement nearly broke me. For causing a scene, for upsetting everyone, for speaking your truth, for finally standing up for yourself. She took my hand. I meant what I said earlier. Being the bigger person should not mean making yourself smaller. Tears welled in my eyes. I do not know what happens next. I do not know how to have a relationship with them if I am not the peacekeeper anymore. That will be up to them, she said simply. You have laid your boundaries. Now they must decide if they will respect them. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I was going to give this to you tomorrow, but I think you need it now. I opened it to find a check for a considerable amount. Grandma, I cannot accept this. You can and you will, she said firmly. I have given the same to Ethan and yes to Jenna as well. Equal gifts for my grandchildren. True equality, not the false kind your parents have practiced. She squeezed my hand. Use it for something that brings you joy. Something just for you, not for anyone else. I hugged her tightly, inhaling the comforting scent of lavender. I love you, Grandma. And I love you, my darling girl. Now go. Find your peace tonight. And know that whatever happens with your parents and sister, you have done nothing wrong in standing up for yourself. With her blessing warming me, I walked down the stairs, bag in hand. My parents and Jenna stood in the foyer, their argument paused at my appearance. Maeve, do not leave like this, my mother pleaded. Stay, and we will talk in the morning when everyone is calmer. My father nodded. Running away will not solve anything. Jenna stood slightly behind them, her expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been fear. For the first time, I realized that she was afraid of a world where I did not accommodate her, where she might have to face real consequences for her actions. "I am not running away," I said calmly. "I am choosing to remove myself from a situation that is harmful to me. There is a difference." "You are being dramatic," Jenna said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. "No, I am being honest. Maybe for the first time in my life." I looked at each of them in turn. "I love you all, but I cannot keep playing this role. I cannot keep being the only one who compromises, who forgives, who understands. It is destroying me." "What are you saying?" My mother asked, her voice small. "That you do not want to be part of this family anymore." "I am saying I cannot be part of this family the way it currently functions. Something has to change." I stepped toward the door, but my father moved to block it. "Maeve, please, just stay tonight. For your mother's sake. For Grandma's." The old guilt tactics, the familiar pressure. But they did not work anymore. "Dad, move aside. I am leaving. I have already booked a hotel room." For a moment, I thought he might refuse. Then, to my surprise, Ethan spoke from behind him. "Let her go, Dad. She deserves that much respect at least." My father's shoulders sagged, and he stepped aside. I walked through the door, the evening air cool on my heated skin. As I put my bag in the rental car, I could feel them watching from the doorway, this unfamiliar version of their daughter and sister, who no longer bent to their will. As I drove away, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but my heart felt lighter than it had in years. I pulled over after a few blocks and called Adam, my voice trembling but strong. "I did it," I told him. "I stood up for myself. I told them everything." "I am so proud of you," he said, his voice warm with sincerity. "Are you okay?" I considered the question, really considered it. "No," I answered honestly, "but I think I will be." 3 months passed after the confrontation at my parents' house. Spring turned to summer, and Chicago bloomed around me, mirroring my own slow unfolding into a person who valued her own needs and feelings. The aftermath of that weekend had been painful but necessary. I had returned to Chicago immediately after checking out of my hotel the next morning, unable to face another day of family tension. My grandmother had called that evening to assure me she understood, and to promise she would visit me in Chicago soon, a promise she kept a month later. My relationship with my parents had shifted into something tentative and careful. After a week of silence, my mother had called, her voice subdued. "We miss you," she had said simply. "I miss you too," I had replied, because it was true. I missed the good parts of my family, the love that I knew existed beneath the dysfunction. "Your father and I have been talking," she continued, "about what you said, about how we have treated you and Jenna differently." It was the first acknowledgement, however small, that my feelings had validity. And we are trying to understand. It is hard to see ourselves the way you see us, but we are trying." It was not an apology, not really, but it was a start. We began having weekly phone calls, cautious conversations that carefully avoided the deeper issues at first, then gradually began to touch on them. My father, never one for emotional discussions, sent me a handwritten letter a month after the confrontation. "I have never been good with words," he wrote, "but I want you to know that I have been thinking about what you said, about always expecting you to be the bigger person. I never saw it that way, but looking back, I can see that we put an unfair burden on you. I am sorry for that." Those words, written in my father's blocky handwriting, brought tears to my eyes. Not because they erased the past, but because they acknowledged it. Ethan and I grew closer in the aftermath, texting regularly and having video calls where he filled me in on the changes at home. Mom actually told Jenna no the other day, he reported with wonder. She wanted to use Mom's car while hers was getting an oil change, and Mom said she had plans and Jenna would need to figure something else out. You should have seen Jenna's face. How did she take it? I asked, curious about my sister's reaction to this new world order. Not well at first, Ethan admitted. There was yelling, door slamming, the usual Jenna drama. But then the weirdest thing happened. She called an Uber and went on with her day. The world did not end because Jenna did not get her way. As for Jenna herself, our relationship was the slowest to shift. 2 weeks after the confrontation, she had texted me, "I think you overreacted, but whatever." Classic Jenna, unable to take responsibility even in a text message. I had not responded, breaking my lifelong pattern of smoothing things over. A week later, she texted again. "Fine. I should not have taken your dress without asking." It was not much, but from Jenna, it was unprecedented. I responded simply, "Thank you for acknowledging that." Small steps, tiny acknowledgments. Not the dramatic transformation of a Hollywood movie, but real, messy human growth. My weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Marshall continued, focusing now on how to build new patterns of interaction with my family rather than simply reacting to old ones. Adam remained my steadfast support, never saying, "I told you so," when I shared the small victories of standing my ground, only celebrating each step with me. Then in late July came the invitation. A text from my mother. "We are planning a small family dinner for Thanksgiving this year. Just the 5 of us plus Grandma Rose. We would love it if you would come. Adam is welcome too, of course." I stared at the message for a long time, conflicting emotions washing over me. Part of me wanted to decline to protect the peace and strength I had built. Another part longed for reconciliation, for the chance to be part of my family in a healthier way. I discussed it with Adam that night as we sat on our small balcony, watching the lights of Chicago twinkle around us. "What do you think?" I asked him. "Should we go?" He took my hand, his expression thoughtful. "I think that is entirely up to you. Do you want to go?" I considered the question carefully. I think I want to try. With boundaries. With you beside me." "Then we will go," he said simply. "And if at any point it becomes too much, we leave. No guilt, no explanations needed." I called my mother the next day to accept the invitation, adding my own conditions. "We will stay at a hotel, not at the house, and if things get tense or unhealthy, we might need to cut the visit short." To my surprise, she agreed without protest. "We understand. We just want to see you." 2 days later, Ethan called with an update that made me laugh out loud. "Mom made Jenna practice what she's going to say to you at Thanksgiving. Like, actually made her role play it with Dad playing you. It was the most awkward thing I have ever witnessed, but also kind of amazing." The thought of my sister being held accountable, being asked to consider someone else's feelings, was so novel, it was almost unbelievable. "Did she actually do it?" "She did," Ethan confirmed. "Complained the whole time, but she did it. She is trying, Maeve. In her Jenna way, she is trying." That evening, I received a call from my grandmother. At 80, her voice remained strong and clear, her mind sharp. "I hear you are coming for Thanksgiving," she said. "I am going to try," I replied. "With Adam. We will stay at a hotel." "Good for you," she approved. "Boundaries are important, and speaking of boundaries, I have something to tell you." She went on to explain how she had been having her own conversations with my parents, sharing her observations about the family dynamics from her perspective as both parent and grandparent. "I told your father that he had repeated his own father's mistakes, playing favorites and creating rivalry. It was not an easy conversation, but it was necessary." "How did he take it?" I asked, imagining my stoic father faced with such direct criticism from his mother. Better than I expected, she said. Age brings wisdom sometimes even to stubborn men. He cried, Maeve, I have not seen your father cry since his father's funeral. The image of my father crying, accepting his role in our family dysfunction, was powerful. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because it represented real acknowledgement, real possibility for change. I am proud of you, Maeve, my grandmother continued. Standing up for yourself that day was brave, and look at the ripples you have created, not just for yourself, but for all of us. Her words warmed me deeply. The changes in my family were small, imperfect, and still evolving. There would be backsliding old patterns, reasserting themselves, new conflicts to navigate. But something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, being the bigger person in my family might actually mean being my full size, neither diminished nor exaggerated, but authentically myself. On my first Thanksgiving home since the confrontation, I sat at my parents' dining table, Adam beside me, Grandma Rose across from me, Ethan and my parents, and yes, Jenna all around the same table. The conversation was sometimes awkward, sometimes strained, but also punctuated by moments of genuine connection and even laughter. When Jenna made a subtle dig about my career, my mother gently but firmly redirected her. When my father began to fall into old patterns of asking me to help in the kitchen while Jenna watched TV, Ethan quietly intervened. Small moments, small shifts, but meaningful ones. Later, as Adam and I drove back to our hotel, I felt not the familiar drain of family gatherings, but a strange sense of pride mixed with hope. How do you feel? Adam asked, glancing over at me. I thought about it, trying to identify the unfamiliar lightness in my chest. I feel proud. Not just of standing up for myself initially, but of maintaining my boundaries without burning bridges. He smiled. You should be proud. What you did was incredibly difficult. Being the bigger person used to mean sacrificing my needs for everyone else's comfort, I reflected. Now I understand that true strength is not in sacrifice, but in authenticity. In being honest about who I am and what I need, even when it creates discomfort. As we pulled into the hotel parking lot, I realized that the greatest gift I had given myself was not just freedom from the old patterns, but the space to create new ones. Relationships based on mutual respect rather than one-sided accommodation. Love that did not require diminishing myself. The road ahead with my family would not be perfect. Old habits die hard, and change comes in fits and starts. But for the first time, I was walking that road as my full self, neither the doormat nor the villain, just Maeve, a woman who had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply to take up the space that is rightfully yours. Have you ever been expected to be the bigger person in your family dynamics? I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength and setting boundaries. Remember that standing up for yourself is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage on your own journey to authentic self-expression.